Hello, it's 12 o'clock on a Monday, and welcome to The Secret Mind. That makes it HypnoMONDAY. So, I've had a request this week to talk about sleep. And to do it justice, I think I'm going to have to do it over a longer period of time. It's quite a busy week anyway. So, I just wanted to set out what my plan would be for it, because, of course, hypnosis means sleep, doesn't it? So, and certainly a lot of my hypnotic talkings have made people sleepy. So I could just say, oh, just listen to something like that and that'll make you sleepy and that'll be your insomnia cured. But of course, that wouldn't be a long-lasting solution. It wouldn't show any delving into the causes, or it would just be a bit of an illusion. If I droned on at you for long enough, I'm pretty sure I could bore you into submission and eventually see some Z's coming out of you. But it's not quite getting to the bottom of the problem, is it? So I don't want to use just a normal, very standard hypnosis approach to it. I could do that. I could say, hey, relax, go to the part of you that's responsible for your disturbed sleep, ask a few questions inside, resolve them, take a bit of time to resolve them, come back and everything will be fine. But I think the common nature of sleep problems, and it may well be a bit of an epidemic, I think, for people, wouldn't really be enough to do that justice. So I think when we use those techniques, I would like to use them with a little bit more substance behind them. Now, if you were going to come and see me as a doctor, what would your expectations be of that? I'm pretty sure your expectations would be sleeping tablets. But my expectation of that consultation is to do everything I possibly can not to give you sleeping tablets. So they're difficult consultations, and because there's no middle ground. Now, I want you to have a good night's sleep, but I don't want you to be dependent psychologically or physically on tranquilizers to get that, and they're not the answer possibly that you think they are. Is that even the right sort of sleep that you should be getting? Look at Michael Jackson's doctor. It's an extreme example, but what did he do? He was a cardiologist, and he gave him propofol, which is an anesthetic. It's a brilliant anesthetic, but it's never to be used as a hypnotic, by which I mean hypnotic being a medical term for a sleeping tablet, or a sleeping medication in this case. Injected it into him. It would have to be a good lawyer that would ever persuade anybody that would ever be an even slightly reasonable approach. And sedation to the point of unconsciousness is surely not the same as sleep. So, and this may be one of the problems defining what we even mean by sleep. A series of discussions and approaches that I would call the sleep series might be more appropriate for dropping into some HypnoMondays. So, as I say, the medical approach, it will be difficult can be difficult for a doctor, if you don't want to upset people, and patients' expectations are sometimes not to want to do any work themselves. That's not to say that sometimes you don't need to use short doses of tranquilizers by agreement for the shortest possible time, sometimes in periods of very, very major upset. They can be useful if they can just reset that broken sleeping pattern. So I think that there is a possibility there, but that's a negotiation, preferably with a doctor that you know. Now, before even the request to talk about sleep, I spotted a tweet last week or the week before by Matthew Sweet. Don't know if you know Matthew Sweet. He's a broadcaster on usually on the BBC. He often comes up with documentaries on Radio 4 or Radio 3 or BBC 4 on the TV. He's a wonderful speaker. He's got a really, really nice speaking voice, and he speaks with enthusiasm about popular culture. He often tweets about Doctor Who. I think he's written for them. You'll often see him teaming up with Mark Gatiss, so I love his writing, and they have a very similar, and I share a lot of very similar interests with him. He talks a lot about ghost stories. I did a little effort on ghost stories on this channel last week, just so I think we share a lot of interests. Unfortunately, on his Twitter, he gets very political, and he works for the BBC. So anybody would think that the BBC was a political organisation. How could that possibly be? So, and unfortunately, he doesn't do those tweets with anything like the charm that he presents his other stuff. So it's unfortunate. But he did put a tweet out last week, and I apologise if I did him misjustice, because I've been looking for the tweet, which I'm pretty sure I bookmarked, and now I can't find on his feed. So, Matthew, if you're listening and I'm doing you an injustice, please let me know and I will change this. But the tweet was about him having difficulty sleeping, which is quite ironic, because I think at the moment, according to his Twitter file, he's doing a sponsored watch of 700 or 7,000 episodes of Crossroads, a terrible soap from the, I don't know, 70s. Presumably it's not terrible in his mind, otherwise he wouldn't put himself through this. Anyway, at around what I think was probably around January the 7th, because there is another sleep-related tweet, he put out that he couldn't sleep, and he was going to go to an urgent care centre to beg, as he put it, mercifully not demand, drugs to get him to sleep. Now, reading that tweet made me sad, rolled my eyes. It's not easy for whoever's receiving that request to give sedatives to somebody you don't know. You've got to take quite a long history to do that. He thinks just give us the drugs. And to go to an urgent care centre to do that, is that appropriate to someone you don't know? In my view, it isn't appropriate. It isn't a good use of health resources. And the practitioner, hopefully doctor, faced with Dr. Matthew Sweet, charismatically presenting his case for give me drugs now, is in a very, very, very difficult position. And often you have to leave those consultations with people being with not having their expectations met, but it is your job to realign them. And the first approach is behavioural approaches to sleep. And I think around here where I am, there's about a 69-page PDF that I'll be pointing you in the direction of, all of which is going to involve some work on your behalf, something other than pill popping. So it's the doctors who get accused of giving people pills to pop, but it's a tough fight. And many won't have the energy for it, and faced with a charismatic request or demand for it, it can be very, very, very difficult. I imagine that he left that consultation with some level of medication. I'd like to think it was 1 tablet, no more than 3. It wouldn't at all surprise me if it was 14. But someone's got to keep the line going, because that expectation is then built in, and every medic and every practitioner he sees from then on in has got his arm in his, you know what I mean, he's cuffed. So that's that. And also so Dr. Matthew Sweet, I should say, he's not a doctor of medicine. He doesn't make that clear, despite the fact he does comment a lot on an awful lot of medically related stuff. Just a note, if you are a doctor of something and you're commenting publicly on medical stuff, please clarify at the top that you're not medically qualified. Otherwise, people get very, very confused. And his doctorate, by the way, is in, he studied somebody who wrote ghost stories at Oxford. So, why? Don't know. Presumably for the doctorate. So that's where that comes from. So that is the approach. That is me talking about Matthew Sweet, who I say his programs I really love. He presents them really well, but he's expanded into more controversial areas. That tweet no longer exists, so I don't know where it's gone. Maybe somebody tweeted back. Not me, I didn't. So what will be my plan for trying to help people with hypnosis, going beyond the obvious of just, relaxing them into submission, which seems to me a temporary solution. So advice is important. I'd always want to take the medical approach. You don't want to just ignore all the correct sleep advice, but it's unpalatable to people learning. So I think I'd probably look at palatability. And the hypnotic process, at least, is usually quite a relaxing one, and it's quite a good one to get information into people with less resistance, less argument. I can imagine, a consultation with a GP of 10 minutes, which can become quite frosty on both sides when one wants drugs and one wants not to prescribe drugs. It's very difficult, and it's, they don't make you happy, these consultations. So, but if you could give the advice that they need, hypnotically reinforce it so that it sets in at another level, that's what I'll be looking towards to do with my sleep series. And I'll spend a bit of time looking at what other people do, but I'm less interested in that at the moment because it seems obvious to me you need that advice layer hypnotically set to reset people's control. So I've used the word there, personally tailored reset. Now, how can you personally tailor anything when you're on a YouTube channel? So I think probably the way to do that will be to allow enough generation of ideas so that the person that you're talking to would have that adventure and solution in their own mind, and the practitioner may not need to know what that is. So that's essentially what you might call, would you call that content-free hypnosis? I don't know if that's the right word, but I don't mean content-free. I mean, can't think of the word right now, but the practitioner doesn't need to know what's going on in your mind, and it doesn't need to know all the details. So it isn't important to go into every aspect of somebody's life. Now, there might be times when that's necessary, and certainly as medics we will do that if we're taking a long case history, and that may be important, but I can't do that over YouTube. So the plan would be to sort of hypnotically have you almost explain that to yourself, and then assist and facilitate by helping you tackling those areas, essentially in your own time, on your own terms, in your own environment, with maximum comfort and minimum exposure of yourself. So that's what I meant by personally tailored reset, despite the difficulty on a YouTube channel. Realigning expectations. We've talked a little bit of that with Matthew's expectations of not even his GP, but a random practitioner he was walking into a random urgent care centre to request his drugs from. So that's going to be important because we want this to be long-standing. We want to solve this problem, and if it recurs, to be able to use a similar solution, because if it recurs there may be different reasons. And then a cross-party approach. This is YouTube after all, and it is a media where you can talk to other people. Plenty of people dip their feet into sleep problems, neurologists, psychologists, and it might be interesting to see if they've got anything that is worth adding to the hypnotic process that I haven't already thought about or developed, or that isn't too drawn out and doesn't involve people going to see them for session after session after session after session to empty their bank balance in there. There should be something I can learn. So I think I maybe need to look into that and perhaps liaise with people who've got ideas, if there's anything that we can add on to this, to the depth of this solution, because I think it will be multiple solutions. It won't be one size fits all necessarily. So that will be my aim to do it. So that's going to take a bit of time, I think. And but it'll be an interesting thing to put together. Sleep problems aren't going away. Of course, they can have a number of causes. Might be pain, in which case we need to target pain. We did a pain video last week for people with chronic useless pain. You could listen to that. When the pain goes, the sleep might come back. It might be anxiety. There might be any number of reasons. Things that need practical help, things that need psychological help. There might be any number of causes of the sleep problem. That has to be entered into, which is why just going in and requesting tablets without wanting to get into that is, I mean, it's nonsensical, isn't it? So, and in Britain, where I am, where we don't want our clients to come back and be dependent on us as doctors, we're not looking to make more money from another consultation. We want people right and out of our lives, effectively, or more importantly, doctors not being in their lives all the time unless it's absolutely necessary. Give a fix and go. Don't build dependency into people. So I'm talking to some of the psychologists here as well. I don't think it's a problem with doctors so much because everybody's very busy. We're not looking for regular clients coming back every week for more sleeping tablets and more consultations and more chat unless it's still doing something. What's the advantage of 20 sessions over 6 sessions or 2 or 1 session? So that would be the thought I would have on that. So look forward to that, or don't. I mean, it's in the future, so you can't look backward to it. So at least you can look forward to that. Please consider subscribing if it's something you might be interested in, and I'll see you tomorrow.